late, so I'd like to call the March Planning Board meeting to order. And as always, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so any agenda changes? Hearing none, I move none. How about,
Can we actually get a motion to excuse the two planning board members that are absent?
I'm sorry,
Can we
whatever.
get a motion to excuse Randy and Julie from the meeting?
Okay, so do I have a motion for no? So moved. Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, sorry, I was not following Robert's rules of order.
Get you next one.
So, if everybody's had a chance to review the minutes of January meeting, any comments or changes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Okay, conflict of interest. Does any board member have a conflict of interest concerning any item on this agenda?
No.
None. Okay. Public comments. Our favorite commissioner sitting there in front. Okay, so discuss, consider, and make recommendation to Board of Commissioners for the public safety village per section 16-53A10. So, you ready for your presentation?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Board, for having me here today, West McLeod Anchor Point Planning. You all have in your packet today, the proposed, public safety building site plan. And there should be some information that was provided to you, in terms of some comments the town has provided, and also some comments, that the engineering group has also provided. Given what is in your ordinance, there's really two tasks for the board as it relates to this project. First being, there is a provision in your code under 16-53A10, which requests that the planning board, when there is a public building, public piece of property, et cetera, that the planning board just be involved in providing recommendation, or just, effectively a sign off. Hey, we've seen this, we're comfortable with it. There's a provision in the code that was discussed some time ago. There's consideration of it being taken out versus being left in. It is in the code now, something that the town needs to be prudent and address. And then secondarily, this plan would qualify as what would be considered to be a major site plan, and therefore would be under the purview of the planning board for review, even though it is in fact, the applicant is the town. So we're bringing it forward to you for that as well. We'll note that from a compliance standpoint, there's two items that should the board be in a position to approve the major site plan, that we would suggest that that if the approval would be granted, that the request would go along with the applicants or the engineers updating their survey for compliance purposes, then also including the correct address on the plan package. Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have, or provide any other information that you all may need.
Well, I wasn't prepared for this to be such a succinct meeting, given all the material that was forwarded to us on Friday. So I really wasn't sure what direction to go in, except to try and digest a whole lot of stuff in a relatively short period of time. So, I do have questions. I don't know if they're really relative at this point. So I feel like all we're supposed to do is say, we've seen it and we're saying, okay, and move on. I mean, is that really?
I mean,
Why are we doing this now? Why didn't we do this, I don't know, a couple of months ago, so that we could really have time to digest?
which section, the major site plan review or the 1653, the planning board, recommendation of? Or just both?
I guess both, the code that says we are supposed to review and yada, yada, yada. I don't understand why, since the town has had a lot of community input, there have been decisions made, votes have been made, which is all well and good, but now why is it coming to the planning board when basically, unless I'm saying this wrong, it's after the fact?
I mean, so you're not incorrect. And, that is precisely the reason that when the code was updated in 2017, there was, I had advised folks, we probably shouldn't have this provision in the code because it's very likely that it is going to get forgotten and overlooked. And so I apologize that it's being brought to you now, but we're wanting to make sure that it is being addressed. And so that is exactly, and something like this, right, is typically going to be under the purview of a governing board when it's, it involves, a financial expenditure, et cetera, right? And that was some of the discussion that we had at the time. This provision is really something that maybe was applicable 50 years ago when a planning board was more functioning as staff, right? Rather than today, in this modern age where, planning board may not be as involved. Now, that's not to say that you guys shouldn't be involved, but it's just having something hidden in your code that all of a sudden it seems as though it's trivial is you sort of hit the nail on the head. As far as the site plan, the town has just become in possession of that. We do know that, and Christine or Stephanie can speak to this more, that there is some, scheduling items that the contractors are trying to, have a start date, which of course requires having a site plan approved as well.
Can I interject something?
Sure.
So did I hear 2017? So what, that has gone from 2017 till now without the changes being made, correct?
That provision in the code has been in there
So
since.
why was it overlooked? I mean, doesn't the Board of Commissioners follow up on this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is. So when a lot of zoning ordinances were put into place back in the 50s, there's a planning board authority similar to this in all of the codes. We had a similar issue in Southport where this provision, no one knew that it was there. And they were making a decision to turn accept a wastewater treatment plant. It causes huge controversy because citizens pulled out this provision of the code and said, why aren't you following this? No one knew it was there. And in a similar capacity, I knew this was there when I talked to Stephanie because I was involved back in 2017. And guys, this thing is going to get forgotten. I know it. And so it has been revised a bit to state that I think that if there isn't a recommendation received, then things can move forward. But again, it's a little, I don't have a good answer with you other than it's, perhaps, again, the town doesn't want to not involve the planning board in things, but this is really a decision, like a public safety building is a decision for the elected board, right? Not necessarily the planning board.
So do you just want a rubber stamp today, or do you want us to officially look at this in more depth and get back to you? I mean, if you want a rubber stamp, we'll rubber stamp it, but I don't think that's a fair treatment from this board. But if you want a deeper depth and look, I guess, what are you guys looking for?
I think that's a great question, and I think the goal is, the town wants to have the site plan approved, and they want to make sure that they're meeting the requirements of their code, being that provision in the code 1653-810. So if the planning board is comfortable with approving it with those two contingencies, that'd be fantastic. But ultimately, that's the board's decision.
Well, I can tell you, I spent several hours since Friday looking over, reading over, trying to digest, trying to look at this through a lens that I thought the planning board might be charged with, not really knowing. So I spent a lot of time, and I have questions that maybe are not relevant, but I don't know.
And just a small point here, we just received the site plan Thursday before last. So we were kind of, thrown into this as well, so.
I understand how I completely understand that.
And so the questions or the review that you saw from Wes and myself that we sent to Becker Morgan and their responses back are all based on 1658, which is major site plan. So he and I have both been through all of 16-58 to make sure that, we were in compliance, which is why our comments about, the address being changed and, there is a space in the ordinance that the survey has to be within 180 days. So and we've had discussions and meetings. I just had a meeting yesterday with them. And we will get a finalized site plan with the corrections. So if you guys do make the recommendation today, contingent upon those items that we've suggested, then those will be corrected before a permit or anything will be issued.
Well, I read over those completeness review and compliance review questions and the responses from the architect, which is, seemed to be pretty straightforward and clear. I just had some questions because I concentrated on the sheets from this dated 8/7/2024. I concentrated on sheets C001 and C101 because from a layman's perspective, those were the sheets that I could most try and follow or thought I could follow and raise some just general questions, not necessarily about anything technical because that's way beyond the other 23 pages. So I did have some questions and if you want to hear
Go
them.
for it. Yep.
Okay. And I don't know if this is in any particular order. Under your compliance review, question number 16 and 17. Maybe let me see if I have that right. It goes to, I'm sorry, let me try this again. It goes to the 35% coverage in question number 1.
Mhm.
And this is where I'm showing my ignorance.
That's okay.
Under item 16 and item 17, there's this total site area of 0.46 acres, 20,225 square feet. Oh, I'm sorry, that's on C001 sheet. I'm sorry, I'm not clarifying that. My brain. So I looked at sheet 001. I looked at items 16 and 17 under the notes. That makes sense, sort of, kind of. And this falls under the compliance review question of 35% coverage. Can you explain the total site area of 20,225 square feet as compared to total disturbed area, which is 30,990 square feet? So basically, the site area is under a half an acre. The disturbed area is almost 3/4 of an acre, and I just didn't understand that.
That's a great question. And so that would encompass where they're going to disturb land for their stormwater system and their septic system beyond just where the building is going to be.
And where is that?
That
Is it
is,
still on that half? I mean,
it is on, if you look at sheet C-301, it's okay. There is, and there's a lot going on this sheet. you have your septic
Oh.
area.
Okay.
But there'll be disturbance beyond just the boundaries of the building, you know, because they've got to tear up the ground, et cetera.
Okay. So the lot itself isn't 0.46 acres, it's this is right.
That's what I'm going through emails.
So the total site square footage is what now, Wes?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Is it the addition of those two numbers?
Yeah, and then the disturbed area, I guess, extends beyond into the right of way as well, where you have the driveway aprons, the handicap parking, and the larger driveway apron on fronting on South Anderson.
Okay. Yeah, there, okay. Thank you on that one. I had another one. So the sheet is titled on C001. It's titled The General Map of the White Oak River Basin. I can see that on my computer, but I don't necessarily see it on your. We'll go just to the very first page. Sheet, very first sheet, and it's Topsail Beach Public Safety Site Development Plan. I was just curious about the White Oak River Basin because I've never heard of that before. And when I looked into it, North Topsail is in the White Oak River Basin, but Topsail Beach is specifically in the Cape Fear region. That's according to the maps for North Carolina Department of whatever it is, and I can show you those. But I was wondering, so I don't know how that matters if, and maybe I'm incorrect, maybe I'm reading that incorrect, but if the town, if all this is based on the White Oak River Basin requirements, and we're not in that basin, but we're in the Cape Fear region, does that have any impact? Maybe it's just a clerical?
I think that's a good comment. I think ultimately their stormwater permit will be, you know, subject to state review. But we can make a note of that to confirm.
They are actually, it is under state review.
Yeah.
Currently right now, and I believe the date that we got that they would get that back was June 2nd.
That's the estimated.
That's the estimated date.
Do you want me to send you or show you where
I think I know exactly where you would have pulled that river
Is
basin.
So I guess hearing some of these questions and knowing that there may be some issues, instead of rubber stamping and rushing this through, maybe we step back and actually, because if it's not in the White Oak River Basin, then why is that on there? That is, to me, a pretty big fraction of the ability of putting this thing together. Is it not? So do we know which river basin it's in?
I would have to look at the sub-basin map.
So there are some really important questions that to shove this through today is, I think, would be a very improper use of this board. Unless you just want a rubber stamp and you guys take it from here. I mean, it's whatever you want. But I would have to go on record saying that this board, with a lot of these questions arising, is not comfortable passing it as proposed.
So an approval for a major site plan is based on what's in 16-58B.
And this is actually, it is in the White Oak River Basin.
Yeah, I think we just continue to go through the questions and
Yeah.
let's see what we can,
Yeah.
let's see where we can get with the questions.
So I was able to confirm, yeah, this is in the White Oak Basin. I thought it was, but I was not entirely sure without confirming. The White Oak Basin is a little bit odd, but it goes all the way down to Carolina Beach.
Okay, well, then I guess this other map was not correct, so good, got that.
And that can be found in the DEQ surface water qualification surface water classifications
Okay,
website.
I saw the NCDENR figure A4 general map, but that's okay. I'll move on.
I can, here, I'll show you quick.
And
While
I
I was doing that, Sue, I wanted
We
to
can move
circle
on.
back to your question about the size of the lot. Is 0.49 acres.
Uh-huh.
The disturbed area they're talking about are the impervious surfaces that are also in the right of way.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
that's all of it encompassed.
And I'll show you afterwards.
Totally fine.
Thank you. Another question I had is on sheet C001, item 26 or note 26 says the source of gas is Piedmont Natural Gas. We have natural gas here, or are they just doing like propane gas? Is that how that works?
Propane.
Okay,
So do you want to change that word from natural to propane?
or maybe that's just the company that's, is that the company that's providing the propane, even though it says it's a natural gas?
That's the name of the company.
Okay,
Right.
just, again,
Sure. That's okay.
You're good.
Didn't specify that.
I had some questions about whether the adjoining property owners had raised any concerns over the proposed development. I mean, that was information that that you requested that the architect put down.
Yeah,
And I know besides maybe my view is going to be affected or impacted, did the neighbors have any concerns? Did they raise any?
they could have concerns, but this is an administrative decision. And so, you know, if it were a quasi judicial or if it was a legislative decision, absolutely the neighbors could participate and provide information. I mean, certainly they could still provide comments, but there's no, that would be outside of the purview of their concern, just the same as if someone built a house next to you that meets setbacks, et cetera. There's nothing you could do. So,
So this may be has been questioned. So there was no rezoning required on that site, correct?
Right.
Okay. Sorry about this, but you know, when you put it out, all this information, my wheels start turning. Who will be responsible for the repairs that will be required due to the heavy traffic on the construction traffic? I mean, the roads are in bad form in some places.
So that's a great question. The town has a requirement in their code, similar to if a contractor damages the road, they'd be responsible for it. In this circumstance, the town is effectively the contractor. So, I don't know, Christina, do you? want-
Yes, the street that's, Carolina on the backside and, that's our town street.
Mhm.
So Flake is not our town street. But again, they would have requirements if they were to, damage that in any way with their heavy vehicles.
And
To repair
South Anderson being a state.
That's
Same
same thing. Now, I will tell you that they're, as far as their initial haul route, that's been designated. We're gonna keep as much of the traffic off of South Anderson as possible. So their plan is to come in on Flake and then just pull back on Carolina. And that's where they're gonna be doing most of their unloading, offloading. That's also where the entrance to the construction fencing will be. So we're trying to keep all of the traffic back on that backside and not along South Anderson.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
Let's see. Does anybody else have anything to say? Because I have a couple more.
Don't finish. Go ahead.
So my question was, will development have any impact on existing buildings and improvements? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, with this new complex, how or will there be any impact to, let's say, the utility buildings that are located behind here? Aren't there utility buildings behind here?
We have like a well, like a ground
Well,
storage well.
And the round building and, so will those buildings that are already here be modified or changed or cut loose or
No.
abandoned?
Public Works will be moving into the fire department. And out of the marina for the most part, so.
And that kind of led to my other question, what discussions have been had about the buildings and the spaces that are being vacated? And are there any talks, except general talks? And if there are some talks about what the spaces and buildings might be used for, will the planning board be considered in any of those discussions?
If the provision of the code still remains, there would be need to be a checkbox, but that,
Because it's a public building.
because it's a public building.
For repurposing as far as a different department going in.
I don't know about that. So if there was a change to the building,
Yeah.
then potentially, but if it's just repurposing and swapping out staff, I don't believe that it would be necessary for the planning board to
But
be
there was
involved.
some discussion about retail use or restaurant use, which I'm not saying isn't allowed under zoning,
Sure.
current zoning. I understand that. But if funds are going to be needed to modify for future use or a different occupant,
Sure.
I'm just wondering if we might have some involvement.
I think again, right now, there's only general discussion, so there's nothing really at this point to make an approval on or a recommendation on. There's no plan. Discussion has been that Public Works Department will move into the fire department. They already have used the garage right here, so it's sort of a natural progression. And that building is still in decent shape, but enough where we can continue the use of it. Right now, the goal is to demo the police department and probably the garage on that lot, potentially using it for parking, who knows at this point, but there's not been any further conversation than that. And again, that's all still preliminary. So right now, we're just sort of trying to get here, and then we'll kind of regroup and figure out what we're going to do with the other buildings. But that is the plan for right now.
And if I may, I think some of the discussions about turning some of these buildings into a retail space was when Town Hall was potentially moving onto the third floor of the new building, which isn't the case now. So
Yeah.
I think that's
We're
what
staying
those
here.
discussions were.
Okay. And I think my final question. So let me see how can I explain this. The town we voted on an option, a building option. And there were some very nice exterior components, the tower, the metal roof, the pretty boards around the parking area to hide the vehicles. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I recall. Okay, so then I've been listening to some of the meetings, especially the last budget meeting, where costs are running over. So we have to make some cuts or changes to the structure, to the new building. And some of the comments that were made, I think part of the roof is not going to be the standing metal seam anymore. It's going to be shingle. Maybe the tower will have to go, even though it locks in the tower image that the town's known for, but that could go. And something about putting a chain link fence around on the ground level.
So right now, again, we don't have the final numbers yet. The bids have gone out, the requests for bids have gone out so that we can get exact pricing. We're really close to our number right now. But we have to wait for those final exact numbers to come in. And then when they come in, we can start looking, are we over budget or not? We may not have to make any further changes than what we have right now, based on whatever the numbers come in at.
And that would be wonderful.
And that would be wonderful.
But
Those
let's-
things that you mentioned,
Yeah.
and there are other items as well that don't have anything to do with it. Those are called kind of add-ons or alternatives. Some of those things, if we come down to it and we're over budget, then there's either going to be a choice of cutting some things to get to our budget or approving a bigger budget. So those are your only two options. Some of those things you mentioned, the cupolas, the towers that are on there, that could be a possibility to be removed to cut cost. Going to the chain link fence could be a possibility to cut cost. The roof situation, not having the metal roof all the way across, could be an option. There are also many other items that are internal that nobody, that doesn't affect the aesthetics of the building. So it's just really difficult to say. I know that the roof, the metal roof is something that is a priority to keep. So, if we start looking at cuts, first we have to know how much. And then that would determine, if we have to cut something, what would we cut? So it's very impossible for me to give you that answer right now, but that's where we
And
are.
I guess my concern goes to the aesthetics, while the function and performance of the building, of course, is extremely important. The aesthetics are
Sure.
also important.
Yeah, and I think that aesthetics has been a priority of the Public Safety Building Committee, this whole process. So I don't think aesthetics are going to get lost in this process at all, even if we have to make some cuts. And I will also let you know that once we do get the final numbers, the town board will be, or the Public Safety Committee will be doing a presentation to let you know exactly where we came in at and exactly what our next step is. So when we get all that, that'll be known to the public. Nothing will be cut behind the scenes and then we just kind of move on. Whenever we get to our final design, our final budget, we'll be doing a presentation to the town.
So really what the town voted on, the public voted on at large, was based on this visual and the interior layout with recommendations. It's possible that when it comes down to the bottom line, if we're over budget, then as you say, there's a decision, either increase the budget for the building or make changes that could affect what we voted on to have in the first place.
Well, I would say that with the vote that the town board made was for the budget purposes with renderings. Those were not specific to the design of the building.
Okay.
And Sue, I think, as in the planning board's role, as part of fulfillment of that section of the code, I think it would be fine for you all to make a motion as a recommendation that the initial aesthetics be included where possible. And I think that would fulfill your requirement as planning board.
So the way I understand it is you all would like for this to not linger and for us to pass this today to move it forward, because if we don't pass it today, then that kind of puts things behind schedule.
Well, we would like to, make sure that you have your questions answered. That's our goal today, is to make sure you have the information you need. And if you have the information you need, we would hope that you'd be able to make a recommend, move this
Unfortunately, you are
forward.
gone, so I don't know if they have questions or not. So.
Maybe Mr. Ware has a
What's
question.
the challenge?
Can I ask a couple questions just about the role of the planning board and sort of what DeWes was talking about? It seems like the planning board really wasn't involved in any of the planning. It's that, isn't 1653 a sort of preliminary review by the board and then to pass it on? I don't have it up in front of me, but I thought it said that. And that's fine, but it's, the Becker and Morgan was working on it and our own work group and then the town personnel are working on it. I guess I'm a little bit confused. Does the planning board really have a role in that? And which is fine either way, what you want to have, but I think bringing this all to us, like Sue and is saying this, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with this. We didn't really have much involvement in the plans. And then back also going on to 1658, when it does come to us as the major site review, the planning's gonna already have been all done and noted. So I guess I just a little bit uncertain what my role and our role is in reviewing this when it's pretty much in place before it comes to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a requirement of the code. It's unclear. And as alluded to before, is precisely why I feel like this is in that section of code 1653A10 is problematic to be in here. You know, the governing board is the one that makes these decisions. They established a committee, perhaps if they knew that this provision was in the code, it could have been the planning board that's the committee. But similar to in other jurisdictions, these things get hidden in the code and overlooked. It's still in the code though, and so we're bringing it forward, and for what, if it matters, I mean, I apologize that you feel like it's, after the fact.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes, sir.
Can we just vote, pass this up to the commissioners, let them decide?
So ultimately, this site plan is supposed to be reviewed by the planning board, and there's two things.
We review that,
Sure.
doesn't mean we approve it, but we reviewed it and with unanswered questions or.
Well, let's keep going. Can we,
Pass it up to the commissioners, let them work on it.
sure, I mean, can we, Mr. Chair, is it all right if we continue on with the questions and just go through those questions? Because there's really two things here. There's the site plan, which is it's supposed to be an entirely separate thing. And then there's this provision 1653A10, which absolutely send on to the commissioners, but does that make sense? But if we want to keep going through those questions, that John may have.
No, I think I sent in some questions and, I have an answer. It's just, going through all of these, drawings makes my brain hurt because it's not my training. So I just, if I don't want us to be spinning our wheels doing things that are redundant to the process that's being well taken care of outside of us.
Understood. So I guess, Mr. Chair and board, if you are, let's just talk about the site plan right now. And then if it's okay with you, we can go back to the other item. If you all feel comfortable with the site plan, subject to those two items mentioned, the address being corrected and a new survey being provided, if you're comfortable with that, then you could approve the site plan with those contingencies, and then we can go back to the other item and speak on that.
Well, let me ask you, maybe this was in John's comments, but we had no previous meetings in regards to the site plan. We had no input. So why do you need our approval now? I mean, we had no input at all. So I think it's kind of out of place to ask us to approve something that we had no input in.
Well, and so there's,
Really, I mean,
Yeah.
we had no input on this site plan at all, Wes, right? So why are you asking us for our approval?
Because it's in the ordinance.
we're kind of confusing two things here. The ordinance requires that site plans be reviewed, whether it's, the towns or a commercial property. And so that is part of you guys' duty. Now, the other item is different. And so, this is an administrative decision of the planning board. You guys are responsible for approving site plans. And if, we've had the training, if the site plan meets the requirements, then it's bound to be approved, whether it's the town or, anybody else.
Right,
So
so
can
think
this
about it, if
board-
it's another commercial building from an outside vendor, we
Correct.
wouldn't have had any input on that design of that site plan whatsoever. But you would still be
But here
responsible
again,
for
we're
that.
asking for our approval on a site plan that we had nothing to do with.
Correct.
So does it meet all requirements that are required by regulation?
You have Stephanie, who is your staff liaison, who is trained and educated to make sure that it does. And when it doesn't, point those things out, which she has done for you all. She's done a comprehensive review of the site plan,
And everything meets all, so.
except the two exceptions.
Right, so then we're really looking for two votes, one on this and one on the.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
There are two
Yeah.
separate issues,
Yeah.
correct?
And so you were totally happy with the answers that came back. Becker, Morgan.
So. Moving ahead then, like. look at the site plan. So do I hear a motion to approve the site plan as presented to this board today?
With the two
Caveats.
Well, yeah. And you might want to clean up any amendments here. So do I hear a motion for this?
So moved.
A second.
That seemed like. All right, all in favor of approving the proposed motion with the two amendments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. That carries, so.
All right. Now on to 1653A10, and I think let's just, if I may, for this board, now we know, you guys know this provision is in here. One, do you feel like it should still be in there? And two, if so, do you have thoughts on how best this could be implemented in the future? Or, because this is a circumstance that we want to avoid. And so I'll ask you guys any thoughts on that.
Can you read the guidance
Yeah.
to me under
Sure.
1653, what it says?
Yeah, sure. It says review with the town manager and other town officials and report as recommendations to the Board of Commissioners upon the extent, location, and design of all public structures and facilities, on the acquisition and disposal of public properties, and on the establishment of building lines, map street lines, and proposal to change existing street lines. However, in the absence of a recommendation from the planning board, the Board of Commissioners may, if it deems wise, after the expiration of 30 days from the date on which the question has been submitted in writing to the planning board for review and recommendation, or 30 days prior to any deadline stipulated by the Board of Commissioners, take final action.
I don't believe that the planning board has reviewed with the town manager and other town officials, with the exception of this meeting today, which I don't really believe gave Sue Markison as a member of the planning board, don't want to speak for anybody else, but really didn't give me time to read over, review, and then have a review with the town manager and a review with the town planner. So if you're going to keep this in, I believe that there should be a more timely component. But I don't know if I feel comfortable making a decision today, because I don't know, we're just throwing all this stuff at us and trying to figure out what our task is, what our role is, and make votes on things that we really weren't prepared to. And I understand why it's happening that way, but I don't know. Well, those are my feelings.
So let me bounce off of that. I remember way back when it was requested of the town folks that if something of this magnitude was going to be presented to us, to give it to us before Friday, before the meeting. And that seems to be lacking. So I guess,
I did not receive we went ahead and sent in our review to them after we got it, and gave them until Thursday afternoon because of how quickly this kind of came on us, and got that to you. I mean, Friday was as quickly as we could get it to you guys, because we had already, otherwise it would have just been a site plan without those questions asked and responded to.
so I guess hearing what Sue says, I don't know what John's comments are, but I think something of this importance and to have an opportunity for the board to meet with the city leaders to table this part until the other two members would be available, and work through this instead of trying to make a decision today that we may not find it as we would want it to be if we had more time to review it. So that's just my humble opinion, but I'd rather err on the side of caution than to pass it and then have some issues pop up like it did in 2017. So any other, John, what's your thoughts on that?
What happened in 2017?
Well, they found out that all this stuff was back, you said 2017, you discovered some stuff that should have been taken care of back then.
It, you know, it was advised that, well, there was advisement that, you know, this provision of the code probably needs to be taken out. Because precisely this circumstance is very likely to occur. And the planning board will be put in a position where, you know, they weren't involved. And it's, you know, it's not the fault of anybody, right? It's just that there's something in this code that no one knew that what was there, right? And so, anyways, yeah, I do think that, to Sue's point earlier, though, if the planning board feels that they wanted to make a motion on, hey, we like the way the aesthetics were initially contemplated, I think that that would be certainly something under your purview to do.
So we passed on the planning, on the site plan. Again, I feel more comfortable as two of the other board members were here. Yeah, we have a forum, but other input was always appreciated. So what is the pleasure of the board? Table for further review or send it up?
I guess I'm got another general question. Going forward, is this something that should be removed, or are we gonna start using the planning board a little differently?
I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for the town, and I don't know if this is something that, you know, Christina or the commissioners want to provide some input on whether or not this needs to be reviewed and considered to be removed.
I think, again, that was the recommendation was proposed to the board at the time. They chose to leave it in. That's where we were, and that's where we are today. This actually hasn't even come up until today. It's reared its head, okay? So I think given that, it's certainly something to approach when we do our planning board update, that this provision may be, want to be looked at. And if the Board of Commissioners decide that they would like for the planning board to do that, then they will basically direct you to look into it. That's how we'll work with that. It will be the Board of Commissioners' decision whether they want a review of this.
But it was not the Board of Commissioners to us to approve that site plan, right?
Well, it was because essentially the planning board, section 16, all of the amendments, not just this one, but many others that come along with it, they go through the planning board first, and then planning board gets it where they want it, and then they send it to the Board of Commissioners with a recommendation. And ultimately, the Board of Commissioners adopted that those amendments based on the planning board's recommendation. So ultimately, it's always the Board of Commissioners that have the final decision.
So it's the wishes of the board.
If it's going to remain, I think it needs to be modified. I don't want to make a decision on what that modification should be today, but I think it should have some timely component. Or let the Board of Commissioners decide if they want to keep this in play. Those are my thoughts today at this moment.
Christina, did you say the board chose to leave that in?
The last,
Yes,
Right,
correct.
last-
Yeah.
And that was when the Board of Commissioners that was there at the time. Correct. This was back in 2017. Did you say it was 2019? Somewhere way back when, not the
Yeah,
current.
it's been a while.
Way back before I got gray hair.
Yeah. So again, it's something we can definitely bring up. Also, you know, sometimes when we pass these amendments and we have all of these, you don't really know how it's going to look in practice. So this is another point to why maybe this isn't the best thing to have in there.
So, having said that, does the town attorney review this or not?
Well, he does review our text amendments that get passed at the board level. Yes, absolutely. It's certainly a legal thing to have in there, just maybe you're not.
I didn't know if this has already been approved from him years ago.
Well,
The
yeah,
text amendments, yes.
yeah, he would have, and I don't
He
want to
reviews all of them.
speak for Steve, but I think from a procedural
Yes.
standpoint, he would probably say this is problematic.
Probably.
Yeah.
And again, could have been even he could have concurred
Yeah.
with the recommendation, but ultimately it is the board's decision
Yeah.
to approve it or not.
So having heard what was said, is anybody open for a motion to? One thing again? Aye.
Um,
Do we want a motion to table the decision to, yes, to recommend any modifications, either to eliminate or change this
1653A.
until we've had time to think about it, until other members of the planning board are present? Is that a fair way to pose my,
Want to put that before we vote?
I motion that?
I'll second that. So, made in second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. So we will table this part of it until we have another chance for the planning board. Now, unfortunately, the planning board cannot meet and outside the meeting, so I guess it's going to be at the next month's meeting that hopefully everybody will be here to put some input into. So,
And just so we're clear, Ms. Markson, and board, that motion was related to a text amendment for this item. For any type of I mean, sounds to me like you guys don't necessarily have a recommendation subject to this, other than, my gosh, it would have been nice to have this, do you want to include, because I think you had some strong statements about, hey, we prefer the aesthetic that they were contemplated, because does the board want to motion on that as well?
Well, I just feel like the whole thing, except for the vote that we already agreed to, those
Sure.
two items. I just feel like this is just a whole lot of stuff that I don't even know how to corral it. I don't even know how to put it into a statement. I'm sorry, I'm just not that skilled. I mean, I don't know. Like I'm fumbling, even though I listened to what you're all saying, but I'm still feel like I'm fumbling and I can't tell you why. So maybe I just need to try and sort through what we're really supposed to be doing with this.
Sure, yeah, I mean, so I think, the site plan has been approved subject to those two things. And outside of that, it would be just kind of you guys' advisory thoughts as a recommendation concerning anything related to that building whatsoever. And that can come at a later date.
So I would take Sue's comments. I just think that it would behoove the town if this board would have some additional time to review it, so that we only have to do it once, and there's always subject to changes down in the future. But I think to make a decision today would be a hasty way of taking up. So.
And maybe I'm thinking, and maybe the others on the board are thinking, that we're putting too much thought into what we should be thinking about. Maybe we should be funneled more into, okay, here's a bunch of information, but here's your specific task.
Yeah. So
That's, I think, where I get.
I think it goes back to what comments you had before. We like the metal seam roof. We like the way think about it in that capacity. don't need to worry about, you know, the utilities or the design flow or things like that. Just think about it in a general sense. You don't need to get into anything technical related to site plan. That's been improved. And so just think about it the way this provision says, upon the extent, location, and design of all public structures. You know, you guys could have a recommendation that you like the building to be pink. If you want it, right? And so does that make sense?
I would throw in there, I think this is, fortunately, we won't be building these buildings very often, but this is a recurring problem unless they fix that
That's right.
1653. Because, or, you know, somehow have more communication with the planning board as it develops so that we feel like we can sit down and talk about it when this comes up. Either get rid of it or make it less frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that, are we done with the discussion on this for today? Anything else, Christina or Wes?
Thank you all.
Okay. All right, so I guess staff comments, anything from staff?
I don't have any. I will tell you that on that back table are the physical plans that we received. And also the renderings of the building that were presented to the public months ago. Yeah, okay. So if you guys want to take a look at those, they are there.
Board comments? Okay, so I know Christina asked when I was gonna tender my resignation, so I will do that now. So I have had a good time serving on the board. A move has come up, so we get to pass the chairmanship torch, maybe back to Randy, he may not want it, but it's been a pleasure serving the town of Topsail Beach, and we'll miss it, so. There's my resignation.
Well, it's not because we wanted it. Unfortunately, that's a choice you've made, and we appreciate what you've done for this planning board for sure, and the time that you've given.
I'll have to come back, see the new building sometime.
Please do. You're always welcome.
Okay, if there's no other comments, need a motion to adjourn. So then second, it's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Walter.